This episode of the Leap Forward podcast is brought to you by Bridge LT, leaders in conversational learning and innovation. Through AI role plays, technical simulators, and comprehensive training programs, Bridge LT is revolutionizing the future of corporate and enterprise education.
Welcome to a special edition of the Leap Forward podcast. I'm Justin Cooke, and for the first time, I'm the one in the hot seat. In this episode, the tables are turned, and I'll be sharing my personal experience as the host and chairman of Bridge. This journey has been an incredible learning experience. I've even joked that it's been my personal mini MBA. I'll discuss how the show originated, what I've learned from my amazing guests, and the unexpected insights I've gained along the way.
Well, today's episode is a little bit different. We're welcoming Justin Cooke, our chairman, and also our host of 50-odd episodes of a Leap Forward podcast. Good afternoon, Justin.
It's great to be here, Vlad. Thank you for turning the tables on me today.
Yes, indeed. So I've planned a little bit of a different episode today. I wanted to ask you a number of questions about the show, how you're preparing, the stuff that actually got you excited, and maybe get your side of the story of what actually this whole year of podcasting, what actually transpired and what it actually led to.
Yeah, wow, goodness gracious. I mean, I suppose in a sense it is a bit of a milestone, isn't it, in terms of, how long we've been doing this now and how many amazing guests we've had. So, I mean, I guess the origin of this was, it was really, I suppose, kind of, it was really kind of created by some fantastic people that we have, in the Bridge network. It's definitely not kind of one individual, I think, that makes anything special. And we had a dinner that we organized, right, to bring together some great minds from across the industry. And it was one of those nights where it was, from the moment everyone arrived, there was a real buzz, a real energy kind of around the table, brilliantly led by Sarah Sillers, and so many kind of people from different parts of this incredible sector, I suppose, all with a perspective. And I suppose in a sense, sort of, it was really off the back of that dinner that we were talking, and we just thought, how do we kind of try and sort of keep that conversation going? How do we, build a community, I suppose, in a sense? And I think it all sort of came to us, right? It was like, well, why don't we launch a podcast series?
Yeah.
Called Leap Forward, which was very much a kind of, I suppose, in a sense, taking on board everything that we've all learned to date, but really sort of thinking about it in terms of the future and forward thinking. And I have to say, that you were instrumental in, I think, convincing me that it needed to be video based as well as audio based. Do you remember that conversation,
yes.
right? Because I was like, oh yeah, we can just get 2 microphones, and you're like, no, Justin, we need to record this. And I think you were, as ever, you were right.
Oh, thank you. One of those rare occasions, yeah.
I think collectively again, sort of we went to our network, and everyone who was around that dinner table said yes. We'd love to come in, and the first few episodes, we hosted in a kind of little kind of backwater off, in East London.
Yes.
That was created by Spotify during the COVID period, and we had to, direct people to.
I remember that was a challenge.
The back streets of East London. Some very senior and important people were visiting parts of London they'd probably not visited before, but brilliantly edited by the Bridge team, I have to say. I think the other thing that sort of, I personally love about Leap Forward is that sort of it's a really honest conversation with all of our guests, and And it's a real mix of professional and personal as well. And I think what we're trying to do here is kind of get a little bit under the skin. This isn't about corporate kind of, communications departments, approval and so forth. It's really kind of trying to tackle, issues that are fundamental to, this industry and business and growth and the challenges and opportunities that kind of exist. And I think for that, we've really benefited from some great insights that have come out of it. I think the other thing I love as well is the way that you thought about breaking the podcast down into these sort of little snippets, these nuggets that you kind of then
Little shorts, yeah, reels.
across
Yeah.
socials. I think that works really well, leading people in, to the longer conversation if they want to. And I think, look, I personally, I love it because every conversation I have, I learn something. It's almost like a mini MBA for me, right? Just doing this conversation.
And have you hosted this kind of shows before, or was it the first time?
It was a kind of moment, I think, where I like many people you sit down with, I think, and I kind of suffer from imposter syndrome. And so the idea of, sitting down, I'm not from the automotive sector, right? So I've obviously been on a hugely rapid kind of learning curve with you. So, the idea of talking to an automotive leader, did put a bit of fear in me. So I think, obviously wanting to do a bit of research about the individual, the business and the sector, goes with it. I suppose, just embraced podcasts, I guess, over this sort of time frame. I've been listening to them for a while. I think they're fantastic ways to learn.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of dived in the deep end, really, I suppose, here and just thought, well, I've been a guest on other people's, but, this time I'll be the host.
And what surprised you most about being a host?
I think, well, there's probably different ways of answering that. I think one thing is that you've got to be very aware of what's going on above and beyond what's being said. So you've got to be thinking about what's going to be said next. Where is this person going? And how much time do we have? Are we kind of covering the things that we want to cover? Am I getting the most out of them? Am I getting the best out of them? When do I let them talk? And when do I almost intervene or challenge and or ask them to perhaps go into a world where they're maybe being asked to expose a bit of vulnerability or to reveal something that sort of takes them slightly out of their comfort zone, but still keep them in a broader sort of duvet, I suppose, of comfort, so that they're kind of able to, I suppose, be confident and calm and open up.
Mhm.
And so I think that's been a real kind of learning curve for me. I think that sort of the great conversations that we've had, have been down to also really making sure that I'm putting the energy in. It's if you've kind of walked off the street on a Monday into a podcast studio, and you've got the whole world of your business life going on outside, and you've got to suddenly be in the zone. How can I help folks kind of really focus just on this two-way kind of conversation, just leave that kind of all behind? And so I think that's also something that kind of you don't recognize perhaps as you go into being this side of the table.
Yeah.
And it can be exhausting, right? Because you don't realize that sort of that requires quite a high degree of being on. And you and I have done, a number of podcasts in one single day.
Yeah.
And it's only then at the end of the day that you realize how much that's taken kind of out of you.
Yeah. Was it 5?
I
The
think
most
five
of
was
that, yeah,
five was
yeah.
the record so far. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And also, we had a number of guests, right? We
Yeah.
had executive members from OEMs, we had dealer groups, we had organizations that support motor industry, like Auto Trade, CarWow, etc., etc.
Startups, industry bodies.
Exactly, exactly. So, if you were to look at these 50 episodes,
Mm.
do you have a favorite one?
I think, you know what, I have to say, like, my part of the job, I suppose, is to make every episode have a
Oh,
story.
come on.
No. But I just want to say that because
Yeah.
it is true. It is true. It doesn't mean that there aren't particular moments where you kind of go, wow, this is great, And but the job is to try and make sure everyone, and every show stands up on its own 2 feet. So look, I just want to say that because I think that's true. That's the job, right?
Mhm.
It's my job.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing that, then I wouldn't be doing my job. I think like, I mean, I can kind of go through a few that come to mind. I think, Ian Plummer, I think Auto Trader,
It was one of the first ones.
it was one of the first ones, and that was phenomenal, right? That was, I think that sort of he'd actually cycled there on a Lime bike, I think it was, and he arrived, and anyone that knows Ian, he's insanely smart, incredibly erudite, and I think, kind of what he revealed about Auto Trader was just awesome.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
he was talking about the Euros, wasn't it? The time when it was Chinese OEMs, wasn't it? When they were sponsoring
That's
a
right.
couple of games and how the search number suddenly increased on Auto Trade and revealing those little interesting nuggets of
Yep.
information was really fascinating.
Because
Yeah,
you picked that one up,
yeah,
and I remember I remember him talking about the size of his data science team,
yeah,
and so, I think it goes to kind of my point, which is basically that ultimately, as the listener, it's what you get out of it, not what we get out of it, as it
yeah.
were, right? And so you remember certain things, I remember certain things, but definitely Auto Trader. I had a great conversation with, I think the first kind of like scale up that we did, I think was with Bumper. And I had a great conversation with Bumper. It felt like it was really high octane. It was like someone had put like some sort of like additional kind of oxygen in the room, and we were just going coo 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 like this kind of thing. And I think we covered kind of like a real kind of rapid amount of ground, in a very, very, it felt like a very intense kind of conversation. um, I think, Alan Cook, and we always prefer to do these podcasts face to
Of
face, right,
course,
in
yeah,
studios, right? It's always got to
yeah.
be, nothing beats it, frankly. But the reality is, people's schedules, geographies, sometimes that can be a challenge, including myself, right? I live in the UAE, and so on and so forth. So, Alan Cook did that over the wire, and. But I mean, that was just, again, that was another very, very different kind of masterclass. I think, for me, there's so many things stand out, but, one of them was the fact of where Alan had come from. He basically, he'd worked for his father. His father had a small business. Uh, and, you know, I've, I could really empathize with that because I also come from a family of entrepreneurs, small businesses, and you do what you have to do as a family, right? There's good times, bad times, but you roll your sleeves up. And he really was talking about sort of the what he learned about customer service,
Mhm.
and ultimately, if you didn't kind of employ that, then you wouldn't have a business, right? And that alongside engineering, I think it's an electrician,
That's right. Yeah.
electric business. So and I could kind of almost see how those two things had kind of molded him, to end up becoming chairman of HS2, chairman of Eurofighter,
Yeah.
and that thread, that link was there all the way through. And more recently, I would say I had a really emotional, um, kind of shivers down your spine style conversation with Sir Connor Burns.
Yeah.
It's a former cabinet minister under the Boris Johnson era, amongst others, but a long career. And Connor kind of opened up about some things that he'd never spoken about before ever, and it was deep, as they say these days.
Yeah.
And it was
He didn't hold anything.
he
at
didn't
that
hold anything
conversation.
back. That's right. So, I mean, I could literally probably pick. You could throw an episode at me, and I would try
Yeah.
and pull out the kind of the personal sort of, I think, kind of like perspectives and nuggets. But yeah, look, they're all in the bank, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, for me, the most important thing is as I said before, it's what you take away, not what I've taken away.
Any guests or themes that kind of caught you off guard?
I think what is really reassuring is that in almost every case, whether the topic has come up because it was prompted, but in most cases it wasn't prompted, was this sense of many of the leaders that we've had the luxury and honor of interviewing have come up through the ranks in very, I suppose, challenging circumstances. So maybe they left school at the age of 16. Maybe they left at 18 but didn't go to university. And so this concept of kind of there being some sort of dream path that everyone's supposed to kind of go on, I do really well in my GCSEs or O levels or however
Yeah.
old you are, my A levels, and then I went to Oxbridge or university, and then I did a management trade.
Yeah.
Forget that. Like, so many stories of people who weren't given life on a silver plate, I suppose, and have ended up becoming CEOs and MDs and chairmen and so forth. And I think that is a great, I think, kind of a story that needs to be told to the next generation, right? So that's definitely one. I think the second probably is around diversity.
Okay.
I think, again, this very, very aware sort of mindset that exists in this industry about the fact that we need to be better in terms of offering equal opportunity to everyone.
Yeah.
And that, again, is a recurring, surprising, but pleasantly so kind of topic that people talk about. I think also this industry is, like many industries at the moment, and has been going through tremendous change. There are a whole raft of challenges, and some of those have been good and some of them have been less good. Whether you talk about COVID or not, you talk
Yeah.
about autonomy or an EV, and you talk about, kind of connectivity, or you talk about China, you talk about sort of, kind of the UK economy, and you talk about government policy. And I guess the other thing that sort of is also really great to hear is, despite all of those, there is still this enormous excitement about this industry,
Mhm.
what it's like to work in it, and where it's going.
Yeah. Let's pull back the curtain a bit.
Okay.
How do you prepare for each podcast?
It's a really delicate balance for me, because what I don't want to do is have a script. And because if you have a script, then the conversation is not authentic.
Mhm.
It's really important that you don't allow the conversation to be phoned in, right? And so, but at the same time, you need a framework, right? So
Yeah.
we've established a really good framework, and that does mean that there are certain questions that do get asked in a different way every single time. But what you guarantee is that the answer is never, ever, ever the same.
So do you share questions in advance?
We share a brief document, which basically, the goal of the brief document is to basically reassure people that they're not going to walk into the lion's den, that they're not going to get asked something out of nowhere that they haven't had some degree of time to think about, reflect on. But it says in the document itself, this is a guide, this is a framework, this isn't a script. And so it's that balance. We share a framework, we share a guide. And then I guess on top of that, what I do is I allow myself a small amount of time, not too much, back to my point, to just understand the person a little bit more. So whether that's, a little bit of sort of desktop research on the business, on the individual, so that there's a bit of context. And then optional, and not everyone takes this up, and nor should I make it mandatory. We sometimes have a conversation beforehand. So I don't know how many people, because some of them haven't told me, but I would say of the 50, I don't know about you, but I would imagine 10, 15 of those, I reckon, first ever podcasts. And so when it's your first podcast, right, you're nervous. So those people tend to be the ones that would just like a bit of a check-in.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, just to kind of tell them what they already know, which is that they're great, they're leaders, they've got something to say, and that I'm not going to be, the devil incarnate when they arrive. On the rare occasion where it has been appropriate, we have also had calls with the corporate affairs teams and the comms teams of those larger OEMs to ensure that again, that we are credible, professional, and that there is, a level of governance and editorial kind of conversation going on. And I'm pleased to say that in all of those cases, with those global brands, they've allowed their individuals, to come on to leap forward.
Any production mishaps?
Well, I think you always try and capture those, Vlad, because one of the things that people may or may not know is that you, sometimes unbeknownst to me, start rolling the cameras before the episode has actually started.
Well, Jit, who is running the show behind the microphones, so he knows when to put the when to start the cameras.
You give him the signal.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't say they're mishaps, but perhaps in a more kind of relaxed setting, we've kind of captured some moments. I think I always say to everyone, look, clearly what we do is we edit these shows, right? And everyone gets to see them before, we've kind of gone out, obviously. And so that gives them kind of confidence. I think that on a couple of occasions, people have perhaps said things that I've thought, maybe don't want to, maybe that doesn't make the final cut. Maybe that's kind of something that you perhaps in your passion, and with the cold sort of benefit of hindsight, maybe you would have said that slightly differently. So in that case, what I've done is I've intervened, during the conversation and said, hey, listen, you said this thing. I don't think you really meant it to mean,
but you came across
that. And so why don't we just do that bit again? And of course they go, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's how that came across. That's absolutely not what I was talking about.
I know the episodes you're talking about.
You do, right? Yeah. And so I think, that's also something for everyone to know, that ultimately, look, we are, we're trying to be authentic and reflect the individual and the organization. And so being aware of when that individual, isn't perhaps doing that. I do have to say that sort of there have also been times where I've gone, wow, you are being very bold here. That is bolder than I thought you would be about your position on this matter. And that's a good thing, right? Not going to discourage people being bold and having strong opinions. Exactly right. Absolutely. And I mean, there are numerous kind of examples of that, I think. And that's the whole thing. We've got people who are living and breathing, shaping this industry every day on Leap Forward, right? So they are at the cut and thrust of this industry. So they are literally the people that you would see on Newsnight or on being interviewed on, the mainstream media about policy changes, and they're coming onto this show, and they're calling it how they see it.
Yeah. Another question for you then. You talked about leap forward the way we've started the podcast. And I think it did happen on a leap day, wasn't it? It was the
That's right.
29th of February.
Bang on.
That's right. If you were to talk about the purpose of the podcast, how would you define it?
I think there's kind of multiple levels to it, right? I mean, at one level, its purpose is to clearly, indirectly position Bridge as, a kind of contributor to the conversation that needs to be going on around this industry, right? We are doing some transformative stuff at Bridge with regards to kind of skills, people development, training, education, whatever you want to kind of call it. We're using technology to create some of the most engaging and immersive kind of content that exists in the industry today, and the outcomes of that are greater productivity, and you can slice and dice how you measure productivity all you like, whether it's increasing customer satisfaction, whether it's increasing retention, whether it's kind of increasing kind of acquisition, whether it's improving the bottom line, ultimately growing top line revenue, and so on and so on, closing critical skills gaps. I could go on, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, there's no going about it. At the end of the day, this is a brilliant marketing device, I suppose, in a sense, for Bridge, right? Because in a small way, we're in the conversation, right?
That's right.
And I think we all know how difficult it is to be in the conversation today in terms of marketing, particularly in business to business, right? When you're operating as a leader, but in a very specialized kind of sector, there's a lot of noise out there, and I think this enables us to kind of cut through the noise, from a Bridge kind of perspective. And I think it's a testament to Bridge, the fact that Bridge invests the amount of time and money in this, and I don't ever take that for granted. To have kind of sourced, to have kind of captured, to have edited, and then launched, kind of these requires a lot of effort from a lot of people. The unsung heroes.
Yes, absolutely.
I suppose,
We've
right?
got the likes of Rotendo,
That's it.
who is working really hard on getting those podcasts all ready and go. So that's absolutely right.
Yeah, and many other people that that I won't mention now, but that play a role. So I don't take that for granted. But I think it also demonstrates the fact how committed Bridge is to this industry, that it does this, right. And I think so that's one thing. I think the other thing is that sort of where the world is now, these are the conversations that need to be had, and we are able to provide somewhat of a kind of a channel, a mouthpiece, a vehicle, as it were, for some of those conversations to kind of happen.
Yep.
And I think that's also really important for the industry. And I would encourage others, to do the same, as well as obviously appear on our show.
Oh, good stuff. So, do you think the podcast is serving its purpose?
Well, I think the judge of that is, in the kind of the consumer, right? The listener. I think it's not for me to kind of comment on that. I think, I can point to data, which obviously, as I love doing. One of which is our listen rates. Our listen rates on our podcasts are industry leading, right? Sort of the high 80s plus percent, which means that basically people listen to 88% of the podcast, right? And obviously, if you think about the fact that we have little jingles either side, if you remove those jingles, they're pretty much listening to the whole thing, which is fantastic, right? So that says to me, well, we must be doing something right here. You look at the number of impressions and reshares and likes and comments that we get from the nuggets that we disseminate across social media, particularly LinkedIn.
Yep.
Huge engagement from really impressive leaders of this industry, authorities of this industry, as well as others, right?
Yeah, I remember Steve Nash episode was collecting like 50,000
it
or
blew
something.
up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it blew up, absolutely. And then I think the other, I guess, kind of test / kind of data point is the quality of the guests. You know, I think we were nervous, right? You know,
Yep.
about, my goodness, we've started something now. You know, how are we going to keep this thing going? You know, how are we going to keep replenishing the shelves with other? You know, we've had this fantastic start. How are we going to make? I think, you know, we've maintained that quality. You know, and some people might say that quality is, you know, is getting better all the time. And so I think, again, that's a great testament, I think, to kind of you know, it being, inverted commas, a success. I mean, I would probably ask you the same sort of question in terms of the impact it's had on Bridge. You know, I think we've certainly kind of had you know, higher awareness of the business, the
absolutely,
brand.
absolutely. Yeah, we do generate quite a lot of interest on the back of this podcast. So, if there's anyone who's actually considering having their own podcast, I'm all up for it. Absolutely recommend it. Please, please go ahead. It is something worth the investment in time. So, another question for you, Justin. We've done first 50.
Yeah.
What the next 50 are going to look like?
I think it's a great question. So we've got to go, you know, for the century now, right? That's the big 100. So I think, you know, we get approached, which is super. And we approach folks that we think would be fantastic guests.
Yeah, I remember one of the, I think it was a Car Wow, wasn't it?
That's right.
That came asking us about the podcast because they've seen Auto Trade.
That's right.
That was an interesting conversation.
It was one of the marketing and comms teams got in touch and said, you know, I think this would be great for JV, and it's like, fantastic.
Yeah, it was a really great episode as well.
He was superb. I mean, again, I think he also arrived on a bike actually. So hats off to the Car Wow guys. I think alongside that, you know, one of the things that we're going to be doing is I talked a little bit about community and we say, you know, you're now part of the Leap Forward community. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is asking the first 50 members of the Leap Forward community to recommend who should be on the next episode. So and everyone they recommend that we bring onto the show, we'll be just saying a little thank you by making a donation to Ben, which is the official
wonderful idea,
charity
of the automotive industry.
That's
isn't it?
right, the automotive industry. So if you've got any ideas about bringing a great additional guest onto Leap Forward, send it to Vlad and I, and we'll get them on the show, and there'll be a nice gesture from our side to reflect that.
Perfect. And if you were to sort of say your preference, who would you love to speak next? Who would you love to spend more time with?
God, that's a really good question. I think that you've been lucky enough to have, you know, CEOs of Peugeot, Stellantis, and Polestar, and some of those kind of real kind of.
We have Dash as well.
Dash Gupta from Hughes Gray, and part of the non-exec director of IMI, and obviously a legend in automotive. I think personally, I think I'd be really interested in bringing in Elon Musk.
Oh.
And I would love to bring in maybe Dara, who's the CEO of Uber. I think that they would be great additionals. I think getting closer to kind of where the world of kind of Chinese automotive is going. So BYD would be a fantastic additional chat. I think across the world, across every walk of life, I think, Vlad, honestly, like we could go for some we could go for some US kind of politicians talk about tariffs and stimulation when it comes to kind of EV and trade. I think you might have the person I have in mind, but DT would be great. So I'm not going to sort of hold back in terms of the size and the kind of potential kind of reach. I think that we've made some first kind of forays into broadening out the world of mobility now, and there's this fantastic intersection going on now between aviation and automotive.
Oh, that was a good podcast, wasn't it? Last week,
really enjoyed that one. Did that one in Dubai, so that's dropping very soon. And I think so more of that, please, would be great in terms of thinking about the multimodality kind of side of life. I think you and I were lucky enough to see him briefly when we were in San Diego, but it would be great to get more of the visionaries driving the AI kind of agenda onto the show too. I think even bringing in some of the kind of more established OGs like the Googles of this world would be great. We haven't had yet. So yeah, I think we've got there's a plenty more.
Good stuff. Thank you. And Justin, one more thing. I've been asking you just very few questions. Now, what questions that I didn't ask, but I should have?
I think my answer to that would be when does this end? Like, do we see this as and how will it evolve? I think if it doesn't end, how will it evolve? Where next? What next for Leap Forward beyond just saying another 50 guests? It's like, what else could we be doing?
And the answer to that is?
The answer to that is, I think, really thinking about the community side and bringing together a network of like minds who are continuing the conversation outside dinners and or podcast conversations that they have, and they build a bit of a network. And I would love for us to, over the more long term, sort of really establish this as a community. There are many great communities that exist in this sector. I mean, we've been lucky enough to be working with the MCIA and the IMI, as you talked about earlier, and AFI, but I feel like there's room for a new and different type of community to reflect the world as it is today, versus perhaps
and bring them all in together.
And bring them all together, a sort of a super community, perhaps.
Love it, absolutely love it. Well, Justin, thank you very much. Again, it was an absolute pleasure. Totally enjoyed the conversation, and back to your show again next week.
Well, you've been a brilliant host, Vlad. So what I've also learned is that whenever I'm taking a holiday, you're gonna these shoes will fit you perfectly. So this may not be the last time you do this.
Oh, possibly not. Well, thank you again.
Cheers.
Cheers.